Hi everyone, my name's Phil, G4PWO, and today I'm going to be looking at the new LNR Precision MTR3B LCD portable HF radio. I'm going to go through the feature set and then I'm going to share a few opinions on my experience of the radio.
Portability really is the number one design priority with this radio. It is absolutely tiny, about the same size as a pack of playing cards, and has an extremely low power consumption. This radio is an update of a previous model which LNR have been making for some time that only has a single digit LED display. The main improvement in this update is the new multi-character LCD display. The radio has 3 bands, 20, 30 and 40 meters. The receiver is a single conversion superhet, has a crystal ladder filter with about 400 Hz bandwidth, and the local oscillator is synthesized. The output power depends on supply voltage. The absolute maximum voltage that may be used with the radio is about 12 volts. 13.8 is apparently too high and may damage the finals, although at 12 volts exactly, my radio gives about 5 watts output. The radio will work down to about 6 volts. I've been using mine with the alkaline PP3. This works fine, but these batteries have got quite a high internal resistance, so the output power is only about 1 watt with this sort of battery. For such a tiny radio, it's surprisingly well featured, although in the process of making it as small as possible, some things you might be used to seeing have been omitted. For example, the radio has no S-meter, no internal speaker, so must be used with headphones or an external speaker. It also has no volume control, although it limits the dynamic range of the received audio, so that this is less of a problem. Turning the radio on. The radio announces the band it's on in Morse code. You'll hear a 2 or a 3 or a 4 for 20, 30, 40 meters respectively. The LCD display is a high contrast and is easy to read even in bright sunlight. The first line of the display indicates the current frequency. The second line shows various status information. The first field here indicates the keyer speed, here set to 15 words per minute. The second field indicates the time. The radio has a real-time clock and an internal lithium battery so that the clock keeps time even when the radio is disconnected from a power source. The final field of status information is the battery voltage. LNR say this is uncalibrated, so it should not be assumed to be extremely accurate. Mine reads about 300 millivolts low, but knowing the error, that's actually quite easy to take into account. Frequency is adjusted using the up and down arrows. A single press on either button will increment the frequency up or down by 50 Hz. If you hold either button down, the radio will start to scan through the band in 100 Hz steps. The radio has an RIT feature, which is activated by a long press of the RIT button, after which pressing the up and down arrows will increase or decrease the receiver frequency only, leaving the transmitter frequency on your original frequency. So this feature can be used to tune in stations to answer your call off frequency. It can also be used to enable split operation, although the maximum range is only about 1.5 kHz plus or minus, so that might be a bit limiting, a bit of a limitation for split operation. Radio also has 3 CW memories. Just press the KM button followed by either FN down arrow or up arrow to play message 1, 2 and 3 respectively. Once the message is playing, pressing the button again will put the radio into beacon mode. That basically makes the radio repeat the message endlessly, so quite useful for calling CQ or something. If you put your call in, the radio can then just repeat the message indefinitely. Whilst the message is playing, the message may be momentarily stopped by pressing the dash pedal of your CW key. Pressing the dot key will cancel the message. The time delay between the messages may be adjusted using the up and down buttons, whilst the radio is actually in between playing the messages, and you can see there's a number just after beacon. That's telling you the number of seconds it'll wait before it starts to play the message again. cancelling that. Band change is by switching the 3 sliders on the left. There are 3 slider switches here. Each one must be in the same position. I believe the first one switches the synthesizer and the microprocessor, and I think the other 2 are switching the bandpass filters. So if you switch one, you'll get a Morse message to say you've switched band, but you've also got to make sure that the other switches here are in the same position, so they must always be in the same position. So that's slightly quirky that you've got 3 switches to switch in order to change the band, but that seems to work fine, so I'm fine with that. The radio has a settings menu which you get to by pressing and holding down the FN key. The radio will scroll through all the various settings options, and you just basically press it and hold the button until the option you want to change comes into view, and then take your finger off the button. Looking at the first one, it's adjust keyer speed. You can see it's set to 15 words a minute at the moment. Pressing the arrows will just move the keyer speed up and down. Just press FN when you're done. DFE is the next setting in the menu. That stands for direct frequency entry, and enables you to set the frequency directly via your Morse code key. You just send the radio the digits in Morse, and it loads it into the synthesizer. So that's actually quite a quick way of changing frequency, because it does take quite a long time using the up and down keys to scroll through the band. So this is in some ways a better way of doing it. Once I've entered the frequency with my Morse key, I just press, if I press RE, it'll reset it, so I can try again if I got it wrong, and if I press the LD button, then you can see it's set the frequency to that new frequency. Next setting in the menu, enter message. As I described previously, the radio's got 3 memories for Morse code messages, and this setting lets you program them. You just literally just use your Morse code key to enter the text as Morse code, and as you can see, the digits appear in the display there. If you make a mistake, you don't have to redo the whole thing. You can reset it with that button, but you can actually just go back and just remove the character that you didn't want. Once you're happy with the message, you can press CK, which will check it. If you're happy with it, you can either reset it or you're not happy with it, but if you are happy with it, you can stick it into memory 1, memory 2 or memory 3, so you just press one of those buttons to put it in the appropriate memory. I'm not going to overwrite what I've got in there at the moment because I've already got something in there, so just resetting it and exit. Next thing in settings, radio's got a tune feature, and when it's in tune mode, pressing the dot paddle will switch the radio into permanent transmit, and pressing your dash paddle will switch it off. So when you're tuning your aerial, you want to be able to just switch the radio on into transmit mode, so you can go away and fiddle with your aerial, and that's how you do it. Next setting, set time. That's actually similar to setting frequency, where you just enter it into the 4 digits via the CW key. And that would be 2000 hours 01, and the tip in the manual is to enter it 1 minute ahead of the correct time, and then just wait until the exact time arrives, and then press the button for load, and that will load the time in. So it'll be loaded in at a precise time. Otherwise, if you don't want to do it, just reset it to start again, or just press exit. Going to the last option in the settings menu. A couple of options that can be set here. DM stands for decode Morse. The radio can decode the Morse you're sending, so if you enable that mode, when you're sending Morse, the Morse that you're sending out will be decoded and displayed as text along the top line of the display where the frequency is normally displayed. The radio can't decode received Morse, so you'll have to do that inside your head. But decoding it, the Morse you're sending out is quite useful just to check that you're not sending any rubbish. You can toggle it on and off by pressing this button. It's currently on, so if I press this button, it'll switch it off, and the radio will tell us that in Morse code. And if I press it again, you'll hear it'll tell us it's been switched on. The other option here, MA, the radio can announce the current frequency just by pressing the FN button. It will give you an audio announcement of the frequency in Morse code. I don't bother enabling that option because I think the LCD display is good enough, so I tend to leave that one switched off. So what's to like about the MTR3B LCD? For me, it's mostly about the tiny size. This radio really is absolutely minute, easily pocket size. This is what drew me to the radio. I have a bit of a thing for ultra-portable radio equipment, and in terms of serious and well-featured radios with a decent receiver and a reasonable amount of output power, this must be the smallest and lightest multi-band HF radio on the market. Compared to my other favourite tiny radio, the Aircraft KX2, the MTR3B is about half the depth and probably about 2/3 of the front panel size. So this radio is a significantly smaller radio, even than the tiny KX2. In terms of weight, the MTR3B weighs just 145 grams compared to 422 grams of the KX2, so this is just 1/3 of the weight of the KX2. Power consumption is incredibly low, where most radios consume an amp or so. The KX2 does impressively well at only 170 milliamps, but the MTR3B does almost an order of magnitude better than the KX2 at just 20 milliamps current drain on receive. In transmit, it consumes about half an amp, which is about half what the KX2 needs for a similar output power. I'm guessing the difference is probably due to the fact that the MTR3B is CW only, so the PA does not need to be linear and can be run in something like Class C or perhaps Class E for greater efficiency. I've been using a PP3 battery with mine, which works fine, but these alkaline batteries do have a high internal resistance, so I just get about 1 watt output power from my radio when I'm using this battery. If you're not used to QRP, you might be surprised at what you can achieve on just 1 watt. I do find that most stations that I can hear well will usually hear me if I answer them with just 1 watt. In terms of how long something like this might last, I reckon you'd probably get a full day's use out of this if you were using the radio in search and pounce mode. So provided you weren't spending a lot of time transmitting, I think you'd get a day or so's use out of something like that. I do intend to buy an 11-volt lithium rechargeable battery that will have a much lower internal resistance, and I estimate that will give me 3 to 4 watts output. On a 12-volt power supply, I do get almost exactly 5 watts out of my radio. What's not to like? No radio is perfect and everything's a compromise. Comparing this radio, for example, to the KX2, this is a full-featured multi-mode rig squeezed into a tiny box. It has AM, FM, SSB, CW, RTTY, PSK, has 9 bands, everything from 80 to 10 meters. SDR radio features such as adjustable CW filter down to 50 Hz bandwidth. It has built-in battery, it has a built-in SWR meter, and mine has the optional internal automatic ATU, which, to be honest, is a godsend for portable operation, because it means just a press of the tune button is sufficient to tune almost anything into a functional aerial. The MTR3B has almost none of that. Many of the features may not be missed in a specifically CW only operation, although I think it's quite hard to argue that the built-in SWR meter and also the ATU won't be missed. Unless you're absolutely sure your portable antenna will be resonant, you're realistically going to have to take along a SWR meter and perhaps an ATU along with the MTR3B, which adds to the weight and the clutter. Regarding the lack of volume control, I understand the designer was trying to produce the smallest, lightest radio possible, but I personally think that omitting a volume control is a step too far. Even with the internal limiting, I find that on a strong signal, the audio in my earphones is painfully loud. Fortunately, this can be fixed very easily. You can get cheap inline volume controls on eBay, so I just put the volume control between the radio and the headphones, and that sorts it out. But that's just adding more clutter in order to provide functionality, in my opinion, really is essential for normal operation. And would therefore be better included inside the radio. The MTR3B does have an internal trimmer to set the side tone level. I had to turn mine down because it was far too loud when I got the radio. That's easily done, check the manual for how. It's a shame, I think, that there's not also an internal trimmer just to adjust the maximum receiver volume to take into account the sensitivity of whatever headphones the user is using. That might be a reasonable compromise to having no volume control whatsoever. Improvements, nothing's perfect, so I think some things could be improved. It takes ages to scan through the CW section of the band using these up and down arrows. I don't honestly miss the VFO knob. I think this system works fine, but it is very slow, and I think that could be sorted out by increasing the stepping speed, perhaps by a factor of 10 on a long press, so that say after 2 or 3 seconds of pressing either up or down, it starts stepping through the band in steps of 1 kilohertz instead of 100 hertz, something like that. And I think that would actually be quite a big improvement to the usability of the radio. It's a very big ask, but I personally think a built-in ATU would make this radio absolute dynamite. And if the clock battery board was replaced with a full-width ATU board, there might even be just enough space to squeeze one into the enclosure. There is actually almost enough space inside the enclosure to fit the KX2 ATU board, so I suspect this might just about be possible. Regardless of that, and perhaps more realistically, the clock and associated lithium battery is a luxury I'd be happy to sacrifice for a volume control and a simple LED SWR indicator, so that I didn't have to take these extra necessary things with me into the field. In terms of bands, I think 40 and 20 meters are a good choice, but I personally would prefer 17 meters instead of 30 meters to provide a broader range of operating possibilities. The cost of this radio at $350, this radio is pretty cheap compared to the KX2, but it's actually quite expensive compared to some other CW only radios that have recently appeared on the market. QRP Labs, for example, have a 5-watt single band CW only radio for just $49. Although it doesn't come with an enclosure, the board and unit is bigger, it's heavier, and it has a larger receive current drain of about 123 milliamps, and of course only has a single band. So the MTR3B is still giving you meaningful extra value for the extra money. So, in summary, there are compromises with this radio, but in terms of size, weight and power consumption, there is no compromise whatsoever. So that's your #1 priority. This really is a great radio to own, and I really look forward to using it in the field.
Okay folks, that's it. I'm Phil, G4PWO, and I hope you found the video useful.